Good morning, and welcome to Chapel Chat. I'm Pastor Kevin Little, and this is the chapel at Rantoul First United Methodist Church. I've been playing a new video game for the past month or so. It's called Elden Ring. Most of you probably haven't heard of it, but if you're under 40, maybe you have. In this game, you play a warrior or wizard-type character, and you proceed through a harsh and unforgiving world trying to get to the end of the game. Unlike most of the games that I play, there are very few directions in this. You're just kind of dumped into a world where 95% of the things you come across are trying to kill you. You don't know why. You don't know where you're going. You even have to figure out how to get there. And there isn't even just like one way to do so. Now, this is part of a style of game that this particular creator makes. And they're all known for being incredibly difficult. In an interview that I read with the creator, he said that he wanted the games to be just as difficult as real life was. That by struggling through life like he had to, when you accomplish something finally, like defeating one of the enemy bosses, you have a real sense of accomplishment. Now, I typically don't like this style of game. I like to know where I'm going. I like to feel like I have a chance of accomplishing my goals when I get there. And I've tried a few of this creator's earlier games and just could not push forward against the punishing nature of the game. But something about this game has kept me working at it, and slowly but surely, really slowly, I've gotten better. I'm not good. I still die a lot, but I keep making forward progress, whatever that looks like. I'm still not sure where I'm going, but I have a couple of goals that I'm working on, and as I get closer to them, I do feel a sense of accomplishment. Now, this game is really like real life. We struggle without knowing why things are so hard. We often don't have any idea where we're going or what we really have to do when we get there. We're moving along the best we can in a world that is often harsh and unforgiving. But making it through something can bring us feeling of accomplishment, especially if it follows a time of frustration and feeling like everything is against us. Now, as if the game wasn't hard enough, there's actually a way to make it harder. You see, when you start out, you pick your starting class like a warrior or a samurai or even a prophet. And that starts you off in the game with some armor, a weapon, and you're already leveled up to level 9. This doesn't make the game easy, but it does help. Or you can choose to start the game practically naked with a stick at level 1. Now in Elden Ring, this is a willing choice that can be made. In the real world, this is unfortunately not a choice, but just reality for many of us. Many people start life just a little bit farther along than others. We call this privilege. I know, this word is messy and political, except it really isn't. I grew up in Ludlow. I didn't have a lot, but I had enough. I was made fun of in high school because I was from such a small town. There were kids in school that had a better start than I did simply because they had access to a better school system. They were privileged. But when compared to other people my age, I had my own set of privileges. I grew up in a family that loved me. Whether I recognized it at the time or appreciated it all the time was my own issue to deal with. I had supportive grandparents. I had cousins around that I could spend time with. I had a roof over my head, food in my stomach, and a stable place to sleep. I was poor by many standards, but privileged nonetheless. Now, our society has spent a lot of time over the past few years talking about the privilege that comes along with simply being white. Race brings its own set of privileges or challenges depending on what end of the genetic spectrum you land on. That doesn't mean that white people don't struggle. or that African American individuals or Asian or Hispanic can't start life off from a good position. But generally speaking, there are certain created challenges in life that non-white individuals have to face, and I can't imagine what it is like to deal with many of those. A friend of mine has recently spoke out on Facebook about what it was like for him to grow up in this very community, just a few years younger than I am. But he's black, and I'm not, and his experiences were very different from mine. I have a certain level of privilege simply because I am white. I can't do anything about it. But as a society, we can recognize it and try to be better. Faith is like this too. Some of us have more privilege in our faith than others. I grew up in the church. I knew God from an early age. That makes certain elements of belief easier for me than others. My brother didn't grow up in the church, and there are things that he struggled to reconcile as he began to learn about creation versus his early understanding of evolution. I had an advantage that he didn't simply because I was born 10 years before him and had a different experience. The same thing applies to Pastor Emily. She didn't grow up in the church the way I did or even have the exposure that Cale did when he was in high school. Some things are just easy for me to understand and believe because I was exposed to them at an earlier age. That just means that sometimes people have to work harder to get to the same point in their faith. But just like life and just like my game, there's no one magical way to get to the end. We might not ever get to what we expect the end to be. We might wander off doing side quests for a while before coming back to the main point. But no matter how we're looking at it, just like life, faith takes work. And as we keep plugging along and trying to get better at it, we'll feel that sense of accomplishment as we meet a new challenge. And we'll fail along the way and have to try again, and again, and again, and again. But we'll get there. And those of us that have gotten there a little easier need to help those who are coming along, not look down on them. And we definitely can't expect their experience to be the same as ours. Most of us are privileged in some way, whether that's our faith, our upbringing, or our race. At the very least, every single one of us is privileged by having been uniquely created by God. Thanks for joining me for another Chapel Chat. I'll see you here again next time. Have a great week.